Hello everybody, this is a video response to Truthway. The video is Jesus versus Paul, 1, meaning part 1. Shocking, must watch. I trusted the title, it said must watch, so I watched. And this was actually sent to me in an email by somebody who is not Truthway. And yeah, this man right here makes some very interesting claims. Some of them pretty crazy, and let's take a look at it.
Much of the dogma that surrounds Jesus was created by Paul.
In Galatians 1:18-20, Paul tells us 3 years after his conversion that he meets with Peter and James for 15 days. What do you think they talked about? 15 days. You think they talked about the weather? Probably not. In Galatians 2, Paul tells us that he went back, yet again, to Peter and James, James, by the way, being the half-brother of Jesus, and at that time, the Apostle John is there, and his purpose for going back is to make sure that he had not run his race in vain, that he was teaching the same message that they were, and he says that they added nothing to him. Galatians 1:23, he who formerly persecuted us, that being Paul, now preaches the faith which he once tried to destroy. Paul is teaching a faith that was there prior to his teaching it, that was there prior to his conversion. In 1 Corinthians 15:3, Paul says, I give to you that which I first received. That means that he received it, meaning somebody gave it to him, which means that the message was there prior to his conversion. And that message of which he gives here in 1 Corinthians 15 is the crucifixion, the burial, the resurrection, and the witness list to the resurrection. And according to critical scholars, when did he receive this information? Well, critical scholars, that would be atheists, agnostic, and other non-believing scholars, claim that he received this information in Galatians 1:18-20 when he first met Peter and James. And of course, he went back to make sure that the message was in fact correct.
Practical in terms of converting non-believers. And he even admits in his letter to the Corinthians, I have become all things to all people, that I might win them to Christ. And what he meant by that was that he was willing to adapt and adjust himself to whatever circumstances he found himself. And if that meant a little bit of borrowing from pagan religion, then so be it.
It would seem to me that this gentleman here and those who made this video, they never read Corinthians, apparently. They seem to be getting it wrong, quite wrong, right off the bat. So yeah, Corinthians 9:22. 1 Corinthians 9:22 is what he's quoting here, and take note of the fact that he didn't mention the verse number, did he? Or the chapter. Why did he do that? Because somebody might actually go read it and then find out that he's lying. If you read 1 Corinthians 9, you'll see there that what Paul is saying is that he's willing to take on whatever customs or behaviors that people are doing so that they can relate to him. He lowers himself to their level or raises himself to their level, whichever way you want to look at it, so that they can relate to him, so that he can then relate to them the good news, the gospel, the message of salvation. So in no way, shape, or form is he saying that he's willing to take on pagan customs and add it into Christianity so that he can get people to convert. In fact, we see the exact opposite happening here in Acts 17 when he's speaking to the people of Athens. Paul sees all the pagan gods that they worship, and among them he sees an unknown God, and he tells them who that unknown God is. The God that which they do not know is the one that had a son, raised that son from the dead, and is bringing them salvation. So we clearly see that Paul at all he doesn't do this where he uses pagan religion to convert people. This is an absurd claim, and there's no evidence whatsoever for it. Alright, so the rest of this video has to do with Mithraism being a supposed religion that which early Christians, Apostle Paul, for example, stole information from, that they copied Mithraism because they were in competition. And I'm going to read you some text from the Case for the Real Jesus, and hopefully Lee Strobel won't sue me for it. And it's not Lee Strobel, by the way, that I'm reading from. It is his book, but he's interviewing somebody who's, I'm going to read his text, who happens to be a scholar concerning and an expert concerning Mithras and the Mithra religion. And so anyway, yeah, so I'm going to read some of that stuff and show you that this video is continuing to lie. Quote number 1 from the book. Mithraism was a late Roman mystery religion, that was popular among soldiers and merchants, and which became a chief rival to Christianity in the 2nd century and later. In 1903, a book by the name of Mysteries of Mithras, written by Franz Cumont, made several different theories connecting Mithraism and Christianity, and all of them today by scholars have been proven to be both false and completely misfounded. Another quote, Mithraism as a mystery religion in the West cannot be attested before about AD 90. Paul was very, very dead at this time. The earliest Mithric inscription in the West is a statue in around AD 101. It's now in the British Museum. This guy sounds British. Maybe he ought to go check that. Here's another quote. Actually, I'm going to read a whole paragraph here. The earliest Mithra are dated to the early 2nd century. There are a handful of inscriptions that date to the early 2nd century, but the vast majority of texts are dated after AD 140. Most of what we have as evidence of Mithraism comes in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th centuries AD. That's basically what's wrong with the theories about Mithraism influencing the beginnings of Christianity. The timing is wrong. Alright, here's another quote. The establishment of the Mithric mysteries to the region of Hadrian was around AD 117 to 138, or Antonius Pius, which would be from 138 to 161. It is therefore reasonable to argue that Western Mithraism did not exist until the mid-2nd century, at least in a developed sense. Here's a quote from E.J. Yarnold of Oxford University back in 1974. The fervor with which historians use to detect wholesale Christian borrowings from the Mithric and other mysteries has now died down. Here's another quote. As Ronald Nash, now this is the 3rd person here, so I mentioned the person that's being interviewed here. We now have a quote that I just did from somebody else, and there's a 3rd person. As Ronald Nash and so many other knowledgeable scholars, we got a whole group here, have concluded, the dating disproves that Christianity borrowed its tenets from Mithraism. So a whole slew of scholars say, wrong. One last and final quote to make my points extremely clear. The flowering of Mithraism occurred after the close of the New Testament canon, too late for it to have influenced the development of 1st century Christianity. By the way, all of this from the book The Case for the Real Jesus by Lee Strobel, page 168 through 169. 2 pages completely undoes this video. 2 pages. I'm going to list, got a list here of scholars that I'm going to name off here, all of which think that this man in this video is a liar. That would be Manfred Claus, who wrote The Roman Cult of Mithras, Cambridge University President L. Patterson, who wrote Mithraism and Christianity, Gary Leese, Adolf van Harnack, Arthur Darby Nuck, S.G.F. Brandon, William R. Holliday, and Ernest Benz.